2, 3, 4.
Run up your engines! Now, people always ask me about more economy-based cars. Here's a 2016 Nissan Sentra. 4-door. You can fit a reasonable amount of people in it. It's presently 4 years old. And as we open it up, it's got 79,000 miles on it. And for an economy-type car, it's got a nice black silver interior. Comfy cloth seats, there's no arguing that. It's got a basic radio system with a CD on it because it's a little bit older. We'll check the back out. Got decent leg room. The seat's way back. Basic car, no AC in the back, but it's got power windows. Nice headrest. Decent speaker system. Not a bad looking car at all. Yeah, we'll check out the trunk. Pop it open, and as you can see, it holds quite a bit of stuff. It goes relatively deep. Not cheaply made. It's got disc brakes on the back too, not just the front. And when we look under the hood, we can see it's got a 4-cylinder engine with a timing chain, not a timing belt. That's good. And as far as I'm concerned, it still has a normal port fuel injection system. This is not GDI. That means there's going to be less maintenance. It's going to last longer. It's not going to wear out as fast. It's not going to get carbon buildup on the intake valves, because it has a regular port fuel system where the fuel injectors spray on the intake valves and keep them clean. Now, even though it has the old fuel injection system, this thing gets 39 miles a gallon on the highway. You don't necessarily have to have all that fancy stuff to get good gas mileage. A lot of that has more to do with horsepower. This baby only puts out 130 horsepower, but it's plenty to get itself around. That's still 10 more horsepower than my little Celica has on it. It's zippy enough. Now, on the downside, this thing does have a Cvt transmission. They've been known to have problems. This particular one hasn't had any yet. It's here to have me change the fluid as a preventative. Customer wants it done, so I'm doing it. It is kind of the weak point of this car. This particular one hasn't had any problems yet. But let's talk price. This particular base model here does have an automatic transmission. The manual one was a little bit cheaper, but this is automatic. It's the lowest automatic they sell. Was $18,500 when it was brand new. But the same year Toyota Corolla 4-door basic car, it was also about the same price, around $18,700. So I'm a cheapskate. I'd never buy a new car anyway. But if I was going to spend $18,500, I would have bought a Toyota Corolla instead of this thing. There's just better quality. They last so much longer. The Toyota CVT transmissions, they haven't had anywhere near the same amount of problems that the Nissans have with their Jatco transmissions. Nissan uses Jatco, their own transmissions. Toyota uses Aisin, which are their own transmissions. I'd go with the Toyota on that by far. Now let's close the hood and take it for a spin. In we go. So it starts up. Starts right up. And when we take off, it's got a reasonable amount of acceleration for a CVT transmission. It isn't the horrible lag that the earlier ones had. And it corners quite crisply for a car of its size. Now you're certainly going to feel the bumps. It's a small wheelbase car, and you know, you're going to feel bumps as you bump around, but hey, it's a pretty stable platform for driving it. Not the fastest in the world, but it's certainly going to get you where you're going. And yeah, Nissan uses cheaper windshields. You can see this one's cracked already, but I mean, that can be replaced if it bothers you. The AC still blows nice and cold. Dash is clean. There's no kinds of check engine lights, and when I scan it, there's no troubles with the vehicle. And overall, it's a nice looking vehicle. It got some style. Brand new, I would have bought a Toyota Corolla hands over this thing. But used runaround car, you're gonna pay a ton of money for a Toyota Corolla. You could get a used Sentra a whole lot cheaper. There's no arguing that. They don't hold their values near as well as a Toyota Corolla does. Now, let's say you're entertaining the idea of buying one of these used. You would definitely have a mechanic like me check it out and say, go through that CVT transmission, get your scan tool, check it out, because if it has any kind of CVT problems, I'm not going to buy the car. And don't buy it if it has a CVT problem. But this normally aspirated, regular port fuel injection engine, it can last a long time. It's all those add-ons that knock out the Nissan engines. GDI, turbocharging. You don't want that if you want a nice little runaround car. It's not a race car. It's a sharp-looking car. You can get a used one at a good price. This might not be a bad idea. Just don't waste your money on buying a brand new one. Go Corolla if you want brand new. I've never bought a brand new car in my life. I've never bought a Nissan either, but that's another story. So now you know the truth about Nissan Sentras. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Ash says, what are your thoughts on a brand new 2019 Altima? Is it reliable? If you can find a brand new one, that's last year's model, and pretty soon the 2021s will be out, and it'll be a 2-year-old car, even though it's new. And you can probably get one cheaper because they want to get rid of those things. Nissan's having a heck of a time trying to sell their cars. Over time, it's a very unreliable car. Now, if you could get one really dirt cheap, but you're never going to get it super dirt cheap because it's a new car, don't buy it. They aren't made like they used to be. Their quality's gone. And, you know, Nissan, and they had that merger when that's kind of falling apart too. I mean, because they're going down the toilet too, so I would not buy one of those new. Calig.J says, Scotty, I'm 15 and made the mistake of buying a 97 S10 with 190,000 miles, 2.2 manual transmission without having a mechanic look at it. The oil pressure goes low at idle. It didn't do it until I drove it hard. The exhaust is messed up and quite a few codes, camshaft sensor, ignition module, fuel pump, vacuum hoses, and more. All right, well, you're 15 and you're learning a life's lesson the hard way. You should have had a mechanic check it out. Now, if you would have called me on the phone, I check out cars for customers all the time, and you told me you're thinking about buying a 97 S10 with 190,000 miles, I'd say don't even waste your money. Don't even look at the thing, because they're money pits from the get-go. It doesn't matter. Even if a guy had taken care of it, it's still generally going to be falling apart being that old with that many miles on it. That thing basically isn't worth fixing. I hope you got it cheap, paid $500 or something. It's a lesson to be learned. Sell it for whatever you can do and get out of it. Don't attempt to fix it, especially at that mileage and that age. Don't go further in it. It's foolhardy. I hope you didn't pay much for it. And hey, you know what? It's 23 years old. You couldn't have paid much for it. Just get rid of the thing and take it as a lesson learned. Don't throw good money after bad. That's a big life lesson there. 990 says, a friend of mine rebuilt a Dodge Durango Hemi 5.7 engine, had bad lifters, damaged camshaft. He replaced gaskets, timing set. Started it up and his PO300 misfire, idles horribly. He took it apart, checked time, it was good. What else could the problem be? Here's the thing. Your friend, I don't know what he knows and what he does to rebuild engines these days. Tight tolerances. You can't just sit there in a driveway and rebuild an engine. You need a machine shop to measure stuff, to check everything out. Obviously, the guy doesn't know what he's doing because now it runs crappy and it's got misfires. Obviously, the job was done incorrectly. I mean, I see that all the time, unfortunately. That's why I tell people with many modern cars, if the engine goes out, you best junk the car. If you don't want to junk the car, you got two choices. You can either buy one that's brand new, it's going to cost a fortune, or you go the route of seeing if some clown can rebuild it or try a used one in a junkyard that's potluck. A lot of times the potluck junkyard ones turn out better because, hey, maybe it was a car that was wrecked and the engine's perfectly fine. Once these guys start taking those things apart, a lot of them have no idea how to do it correctly in a modern car. Then you get a problem like that. When I was a young kid, cars were simple. Yeah, you had a simple V8 engine that had, you know, valve for each intake and exhaust. So instead of having 32 valves, 8-cylinder would only have 16. They were easier, simple to work on. Now they're complex. Unless a pro rebuilds them, you're kind of totally wasting your time attempting to rebuild them. And a 22 Skidoo says, got a 2010 Chevy Malibu. It cranks and it won't start. It has no fuel pressure. I checked the fuel pump fuse. It's fine. You know, a lot of times, sad but true, it means that your fuel pump isn't working anymore. So what you want to do is, if you know how to test it, test the fuel pump. If you don't, go to a mechanic. All they got to do is send power and ground to the fuel pump. And if it starts pumping, you know the pump's okay. If it doesn't pump and you still don't have any fuel pressure, it means the pump's bad. Now, let's say the pump, you give it power and ground, starts right up, starts pumping like mad. Well, then for some reason, it's not getting any power. You said the fuse was okay. Well, there's also a fuel pump relay. You can go to AutoZone, any place, tell them, you know, I need to know where that is. And they can sell you one, and they can show you in the parking lot. And you can unplug the relay and plug another relay in. If that fixes it, Voila! Simple. Often it's a bad relay. The relays just send power when you turn the car on. Power doesn't go from the computer to the pump. It goes from the computer, which is only 5 volts, reference signal, goes to the relay, and then it turns into 12 volts that goes to the fuel pump, because computers can't run a 12-volt system. They'd burn themselves out. So everything that's run by computer that's 12 volt has to have a relay that goes from 5 volts, and then the relay bumps it up to 12 volts. Try the relay. It can often just be the relay. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.